Well, good morning. Just checking the news. Of course, doesn't matter if you get your news from a newspaper or a news outlet online or the TV or the radio or whatever. If you pay any attention at all to the news of late, there's some really bad news out there, and it has to do with people killing people. You know, just in the last few days, we've had two young men, two different parts of the United States, two different political spectrums, and you would think worldviews that both just set out to kill as many people as they could. And the inevitable questions come up, why? And then there's people wanting to say, well, if we just did this, or if we just did that, if we just passed this law, if the president would just quit tweeting, if we had better recognition of mental illness, and there's all this speculation, and everybody seems to have an answer, and everything it seems has to do with some immediate action that we can take that would just rub all that out. Well, those young men, it took them over 20 years to become who they were, and who one of them still is, one of them still alive, one is deceased. It took over 20 years to make them the people that they became, with the values, or some would say lack of values, that they had. I just want to submit to you that in a world where everybody's allowed to make up their own morality, where everyone decides for themselves what is right and what is wrong, where you cannot teach moral absolutes because, well, it might offend somebody because that's in the Bible, or that's in the Quran, or that's in whatever. In that kind of world where people make up their own mind what is right and what is wrong, then I would submit to you that both of these young men were doing what they thought was right. They processed the information, they looked at the situation, and they made a decision to act. They planned, they prepared, and they made, it wasn't a spur of the moment decision. And they did that having come through an educational system, a political system, a worldview, and they arrived at that conclusion. Now you might say, as most would, well, that's a horrible conclusion, and it's wrong, and it's got to be simpler. If we just made a different law, it's not a legal problem. It's not really a mental health problem. It's certainly not a political problem. What we have in America that makes these kind of things not only possible, but to those who do them plausible and the right thing to do, is a heart problem. And the heart of man is deceitful above all things. If you want to know why the problem is there, you go all the way back to, whether you take it literally or figuratively, to Adam and Eve and their two sons. One of them killed the other. To him, it was the right thing to do at the time. But Jesus came along and he taught us a different way of living, a different way of looking at each other, that others are more valuable than we are, and that everyone has immeasurable value, instead of, as we see taught and proclaimed in too many places, that really people have no value. That it's just life and sober. And so what I'm saying is that when a person is left to their own decision making and to make up their own moral values, when we refuse to teach good, solid moral values in our schools, in our families, and in some cases even in our churches, then you're going to get what you're going to get. And Jesus taught it this way. He said, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Love your neighbor like yourself. Some people would say that's the golden rule. Well, yes, it is. And gold is gold is gold. Whether it's in the Bible, in a textbook, in a sermon, in a political speech, or wherever it is. And until we recognize the real root of the problem, a heart problem, then it's not going to be solved. I pray to God that we'll never see another mass shooting in these United States. But you have to start at the root to kill a foul tree that produces foul fruit. And the root of this is what we're teaching people, that there is no accountability. You make up your own rules. You decide what's right and wrong for you. And that was the devil's trick that got us all in this mess to start with. He told Eve, God knows that if you eat of that tree, you'll be like God, determining right from wrong. In other words, you can be God. Well, no, we can't. There's one God, and he said, love one another as I have loved you. Thanks. Have a great day, and watch your back.